I think it's time to get started. I'm Suzanne Becker. I'm Assistant Director of Making Your Pantry, and we're so glad that you're here. We're proud to share a mission with you in serving our neighbors who may be food insecure, struggle with hunger. And we're going to have a lot of fun today to learn a little bit more about how to encourage produce, healthy eating, and we're very fortunate to have wonderful folks here with us. But before we do that, I would like to first of all thank the Community Table for hosting us here. Community Table is one of our partners. They serve a meal every single day of the year, 365 days a year. And we are grateful to be here in this wonderful spot. And I thought maybe really quickly we would go around and you could just say your name and where you're from, your food bank, your food pantry, or where you're from. We just do that quickly because I know we have lots of different places, and that's fun.
My name's Gina Lewis. I'm from the Channel 1 Food Bank in Rochester, Minnesota, and specifically I oversee the food shelf there.
Amanda Schulze, I'm Case Manager Supervisor, Western region, but we have 10 offices throughout the state. Mine are just Superior Lacrosse and
For the AIDS resource center.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Michelle Pride with Feed My People.
Senator McEnroe, you may be.
Cheryl Weimer, the Whole Foods Church in Louisville.
Beautiful. Let's see.
Myrna Grant, Mayor, Putnam County.
Okay.
Marcia Ballard, Putnam County.
Marcia.
Lorna Springate, Dr. Flambeau, Lakeland Pantry, Northern Wisconsin.
Okay. Wonderful.
Sherry there, Food Pantry in Eau Claire. We have
Join McCutcheon with the Community Action Agency and overseas food pantries.
Thank you, Andrews. I'm one of the food pantries. Hayward, Sawyer County. Okay, wonderful.
I'm Jennifer Meyer and I'm from Fruit of the Vine in Stanley.
And then the Yates from Fruit of the Vine and Stanley. Wonderful. Okay, and we do have 4 or 5 folks from southern Wisconsin that are still coming from a distance, so hopefully they will still come and join us when they can. So,
Can the folks on the telephone actually pipe it, unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves, please? I know you guys are there.
We're in Appleton. This is Ray Meeske and Mike Griffin from the Berlin Food Pantry.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, we're from Feeding America in Milwaukee. This is Alejandra Wanda from U-Hold. And Deborah from South Milwaukee Human Concerns.
Thank you, welcome.
Anybody else?
I see there's 1 or 2 more folks.
Lisa Roberts said hello via text here.
Lisa Roberts says hello via text, and I think we have 1 more.
Sherry Matson from Milwaukee.
Hi, welcome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
How fun to have people from all over the state. That's just awesome. I'm going to, before we go any further, I'm going to introduce David Lee. David is the Executive Director of Feeding Wisconsin, and then perhaps you can introduce him.
It's the fun, Jeff.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Hello, folks on the telephone. We are super excited to be here with all of you. I think this is our second. I know this is our second training. I think what's super exciting about this is that we're continuing to bring together folks from pantries from across the state for these trainings and even virtually to learn a little bit more about how we can increase the amount of fresh, healthy food for folks who we're serving. And the reason why we're able to do this project is because we were funded last year by United Healthcare to help our food banks and food pantries be able to sort of meet this new challenge of produce, right? Because I think, as you all know, produce presents some interesting challenges given the network that we've built up over the years. So some of you, I think many of you, have gotten funds to get a brand new cooler into your pantries. We're funding other new innovative projects and also helping our food banks purchase the high quality produce for you guys to distribute. One just really quick story about the impact of this kind of a grant, and I think you guys may or may not feel this, but last week I was at a pantry that got one of these coolers. Before this cooler came to their food pantry, they were using beverage coolers to store produce. And this wasn't a small pantry. I mean, it was a pretty big pantry that serves hundreds of people a month. They're using beverage coolers, and now they have these amazing coolers. So we're super excited to be here with you. And none of this would be possible without Jeff. He's been the one who many of you have been interacting with to work on getting your reimbursements for your travel here and getting your coolers and everything else. So Jeff is the guy you want to talk to. The last thing I will say is that in addition to the coolers that have been installed or will be installed in your food pantries, there are also additional funds that you all can ask Jeff for to implement some of the learnings that you're going to have, right? So last week we did a training on merchandising and marketing, and so the folks in that training were like, "Well, you're telling us all this stuff. How do we go about and do it?" We have a couple $1,000s for each person who's getting a cooler to go out and do some of the things that we're training you all on.
And aside, even if you're not getting the coolers, at each food bank that you are a part of, there is additional funding that they may have available. So between the two, we've got some options that we can at least go down and look at. We really want to make your pantries inviting and exciting. So as whatever way we can do that and help you with that, we're here to help that.
So with all that, I will say also for folks on the telephone and on the live stream, if you have any questions or anything, please just unmute yourself and pipe in. And I think the second part of this training is actually going to be a bit of a cooking demo. For folks on the phone, we will be switching off of the webinar to the live stream, but all of this will be recorded and for you to be able to take a look at afterwards. So we're super excited to be here with all of you. So thank you. So thank you.
Good. We're very excited today that our presenters and the folks that put together our agenda we have Nancy Hoppy, who some of you may know. She is retired from UW Extension, and April DeLaw, and she's UW Extension. Very talented.
No comment, Jackson,
Okay. I'm sorry, and we are so excited you guys have worked hard to put this together. It's been fun, so take it away.
Well, thank you, and we are excited to have you all together and to talk about nutrition. So when we think about nutrition and making food choices, there are many options for us, right? Okay, let's say that we're all going out to eat this Friday night, and you have a choice between French fries to go with your fish or mixed vegetables. What are you going to choose?
French fries.
Every time. And there are lots of choices, right? And do you always make the most nutritious choice? Now, I'm with Michelle, I'm going to choose some French fries. And the reason I'm going to is that is not something I'm going to make at home because I do not want to deal with fat. I don't want it popping around. I just don't want to deal with it at all. That's my one chance to have French fries. So people will go, whose meal is that? Your husband's or yours, right? My husband, he would choose the mixed vegetables. He does better than I do. So I want you to think about a regular, typical day, and I want you to think about a number between 1 and 10 as far as your eating pattern. 1 being, I really don't eat so well, and 10 being, I am a perfect eater, just like a dietitian who always eats the low-fat yogurt, always eats the chicken instead of steak, always eats the fruits and vegetables every single day. So I want you to just think for a minute, what number would you give yourself on a typical day? 5. All right, now, how many are from 1 to 2? Raise your hands. 3 to 4. 5 to 6. 7 to 8. 9 to 10. Okay, you guys were pretty hard on yourselves. Okay, now I want you to think about the typical food pantry guest who comes into your pantry. Now, on a scale from 1 to 10, I want you to think about, and again, these are all averages, right? I want you to think about what number you would give. Okay, so just think for a moment. The typical person walks into your pantry, you think about the choices they make, right? Think about what number you might give them. Okay? Raise your hand. How many of them are between 1 and 2? 3 to 4, 5 to 6, and 8 to 10. Okay. So in typical, are they eating less healthy than you typically are? Okay. What happens when we see that? How do we react to that? What kind of feelings do you have? Anybody? What kind of feelings?
Well, feeling sorry that we're making the choices.
Okay, I'm sorry they're not making different choices. Good. What else?
They're going for all the sweets.
I'm seeing them taking sweets, and how does that make you feel? How do you feel when that happens?
I feel bad because I don't think they realize what it's doing to them.
Okay, so in long term, what will it do to their health, right? Okay, any other feelings or reactions?
I do the pop-ups, so I don't have like a set pantry. And for me, what I see is they take what's easy. You know, the
So
boxes and
simple preparation. Okay, anything else you're seeing? Because this is insight we need to be able to have people think about it differently.
I don't know that they have the education, even though, you know, to make applesauce. I mean, how hard can that, I mean, how hard is that? But, you know, I'll say, well, why don't you take some more of these, because they're getting bad, but if you make applesauce or something with them, you could freeze it or whatever, and they look at me like I'm from China. What?
Okay.
Do we do that nowadays, or?
Okay, so there are different skill levels. So I was just reading this book about nudges. Have any of you read this, Made to Stick? Okay, when you get a chance, this is really interesting. So what we think about is that the more we know about something, the more abstract our thinking becomes. Have you ever talked to somebody who was really into their work that was something you didn't know anything about, like engineering? And they start talking about it, and after 2 minutes, you're just like I don't know what the heck you're talking about. And then they start with the acronyms, right? Okay, so think about nutrition. How many of you, as you learn more, start talking about fiber, vitamin A, vitamin C? Those concrete. They're very abstract. So the more we know, the more abstract we become, and we lose people. Okay? I'm not even talking about judgment now. I'm saying that we lose people because we're talking about at a very different level than they are at. So let's bring it back and think about that human analogy. Now I want to think about the complexity of it and talk about, I worked in SNAP Ed, which is food-wise in Wisconsin, for about 25 years. I want to tell you a story about a client. So I was working with Patrick. Patrick was a single guy. He was about 35, and we have been doing cooking classes in his facility for we've been there probably 5 years, once a month for 5 years. And I noticed that Patrick is just not trying the foods. He will help, but he's really reserved about this. So Patrick was having some health problems, and so I was able to do some one-on-ones with him. So I said, could we go for a walk? Because Patrick is a little heavy, and I thought, hey, maybe we could get some walking in while we're talking. So Patrick, I said, tell me about what's going on. It seems like when we're cooking, you're not as engaged, and I'm just I'm feeling like I want to pull you in, but I want to be respectful about that. I said, can you tell me anything about why that's happening? He said, well, Nancy, you just don't understand. And I said, well, can you help me understand? Because I want to. I just don't know how we can make this difference so you feel more included. So he said, well, when I was a kid, we had a big family, and there wasn't much food or much money. And when we did have a meal, and we were sitting down to have the meal, if I did not eat the food, I had to sit at the table until the food was gone. Sometimes until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then my parents would say I could go to bed. So he said, I don't like vegetables, because it was vegetables that I wasn't eating on my plate. Now, is there any complexity here about choosing things? Not only did he not have very many choices, but it was forced to eat something that he didn't like or didn't think he liked. Now, how quickly are we going to change that? Okay, it's very, very slow. We got to take it where it is. Okay, so I said, well, what would you be willing to eat that you know is healthy? Do you think he didn't know what was healthy? Okay, he knew what was healthy, maybe not to the same extent that you and I might about saturated fat and all those kinds of things, but he knew. And he said, well, I kind of like fruit. I said, well, what could we do with fruit that you might like to eat? He said, well, how about smoothies? So he worked with his sister. They actually bought him a Ninja, which is way more than I would have spent, right? And he started making smoothies. Not only did he start making smoothies, but every month when we came, he made a smoothie for the whole entire group because he thought they should eat them because it was healthy. Okay. Has he changed completely? Absolutely. Is he making a step? Absolutely. So we want to be concrete. Let's think about being concrete. So let's look at what we can use as a guide. So we have my plate. What I like about my plate is, do you all remember the triangle, my pyramid? How much time was my pyramid for? How many days? 1, right? This is for 1 meal. Is it more concrete? Yes. So what am I going to eat for 1 meal? I'm not asking people about a whole day or shopping for a whole week. I'm talking about 1 meal, and that's all. So as you look at this, are there any things that you see differently from the pyramid? Anything different? Go ahead. What do you see different?
The pie is shaped according to the recommended requirement.
Right, which in some ways that's kind of the same, isn't it? Because the pyramid was, what was at the bottom? Who remembers the food group we were supposed to eat the most of? Grains. Has that changed at all? No. Okay, so things are changing as we learn more. Anything else you're noticing?
The top saturated fat, the fat's on, the top is not.
Okay, so,
My favorite one.
chocolates, no others, where's the chocolate? Okay, so also it has to do with the difference in philosophy, doesn't it? We're not going to tell people what not to eat, we're going to tell them what to eat. We're going to be proactive rather than the reactive. Anything else? Great comment. Anything else we see?
Vegetables portion is larger than the fruits portion.
Yes. Why is that?
Fruits have sugar.
Fruits have more sugar, right? More calories. Very good. Anything else you see?
I think the way it's displayed, it's easier to read than that triangle for somebody. Because this they can put on their plate and imagine. It's the triangle, you couldn't really do that.
Very good. Good. Anything else?
The dairy indicates milk,
Right.
cheese, and not other fatty.
So they're looking again at the positive, aren't they? Right? The calorie issues are different. Good. Anything else? Yes, they changed it. Really good eye. It used to be called meat, now it's called protein. Okay, so we're having them think about maybe tofu, maybe black beans, those kinds of things. Okay, very good. So we're gonna have people follow this my place. Which food group are people not generally eating enough of? Vegetables. Okay, so we're gonna have April get started on talking about that a little bit.
So we all just identified that vegetables are definitely a food group that our guests or maybe even ourselves are not eating enough of. And so our goal, of course, when we do nutrition education is always to think, how can we increase our vegetable intake? And so that's a big goal for us today, is to just always have that in our mind. So I want to get our brains thinking more about that vegetable group because that's really a big focus for us today. So at your table, if you would take about 2 minutes to each talk about your favorite vegetables, and then we're going to come back as a large group and do some discussion around that. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm setting a timer. Your favorite vegetables. Share some thoughts about that and go. Those of you on
vegetables that I like to be able to take a little bit more. I get it. Second. And
Oh, yeah.
No, actually, my mom had one. I can use. I really like different cauliflower.
and which is one cauliflower broccoli. Like just kind of Thank you so much for your discussion. My timer is really soft. I was like, wow, I was hoping for this loud. So again, for those on the webinar, thank you for thinking of those vegetables. I'm going to pose a couple of questions that I want you to think about, and then we're going to have some discussion around it. So you'll notice that my plate obviously is separated into the 5 food groups, but did you notice anything about the colors? Why do you think they chose the colors they did? Is there anything behind that?
Green vegetables.
Okay.
Fruit, you usually think of as red.
Sure, yeah.
Well, they make them look attractive.
Absolutely right, or colors. Well, there's kind of a subliminal message to my plate as well. We want to get a variety of colors of different foods, right? Because when we know, again, when Nancy talked about that, when we know more, we want to get a variety of colors because the different colors have different nutrients. So when you think about the favorite vegetables that you just talked about at your table, were they fitting into one color group? Or do you have a variety of colors in your day? So I'm putting that out there. Do you do certain color vegetables or do you have a nice rainbow of colors?
Rainbow.
So I'm seeing most of you saying, yeah, I'm doing pretty good with the colors. Now again, let's take it into a different perspective. How about your guests?
The prettier and more attractive you can make it look, the more chances that they're going to take it.
That's a valid point. Did everyone hear that? No. So the more attractive we can make things look, they may be more appealing to take. That's a very valid point. So again, we want to think about ourselves personally because that's our story. But our guests have other stories too. And so we want to, again, We want them to eat vegetables, period. That's our goal, right? But if we move it up to the next level, we want a variety of colors of fruits and vegetables that they are going to have offered and to take. All right, another question when you think about your favorite vegetables. Do they tend to fall into a higher starch content? Things like peas and corn and potatoes? Or are they in a lower starch content, a lower kind of carb count content? So things, maybe more above ground versus below. Think about that for you. Do they fall in certain categories? When you do in the whole meat potato and, a vegetable, you notice when I say that, meat, potato, and a vegetable? Right? So again, potato's more of that starch. Right? So again, we want to think about, where are we at with that? But again, that's bringing it up to another level, isn't it? So our goal, let's get them to have more vegetables. Let's get us to have more vegetables. Then we want more color. And then we want to think about, okay, what about, that starch content and getting that variety in that realm. So again, we're always thinking that next stage, that next level of our health. So we really want to portray that today too as well. The other thing, think about a vegetable that you love raw and crunchy, but once it's cooked, you're like, no way. Or flip-flop, right? Okay, so think about one for you. I'd love to hear some examples. Webinar people, please make sure to jump into if you have some. What's an example? I love it raw and crunchy, not cooked, or vice versa. Thank you. That's a very common one, all around the lifespan. Asparagus.
We got another asparagus and mushrooms on the webinar
Thank you,
chat.
Governor. Awesome. What are some other things? And has it changed throughout your lifespan? Okay, can you think of a vegetable as a child that you were like, and now as an adult, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so good, I eat it all the time. For me, that was tomatoes. I said, no way to tomatoes. Not gonna have them. And then I went to a sandwich shop once and they accidentally put it on there. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to try fruits again, and here we go. And ever since that day, I have now been eating tomatoes on salads and everything else that I eat. I can even eat those cherry tomatoes, right? Like a grape. So our tastes change. That's another thing to keep in mind. It takes an average of 15 times of trying the food before we should judge if we like it or not. And that changes across the lifespan. Younger kids have different tastes than we do as we age. So keeping that in mind as well. So for yourself, you have those. Our guests have those as well, right? So we may offer all canned, but are we catering to those likes and dislikes of the people who are walking through our doors? So we want to think about that as well. For those of you who are getting the coolers, now this opens up a few more options, right? So again, canned, fresh, and frozen are all varieties that we get vegetables in, right? Have we heard anything about the nutrient content of those varieties? What are some of the things we've heard nutritionally about canned, fresh, or frozen? And our people don't forget to jump in. Say it again?
Canned usually has high sodium.
Canned can be higher in sodium. So if we are again stepping up on our nutrient, looking at different nutrient things, we need to watch for the sodium content of different canned products. Yep. What else? Canned, fresh, frozen. What have we heard?
Canned can basically have the food value cooked right out of it. If it's frozen or fresh, vitamin level is often much higher and much more valuable.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say different nutrient content. It can change based on how it's packaged. There's a lot of things around that. We're going to talk about the myth and the reality of that in just a bit. I want to hear a couple more. Do we have anybody on the webinar giving us some info?
Fresh has more vitamins.
Okay. Loving hearing these things.
Fresh is always best.
Isn't that a catchy phrase? Right? Marketing? Wow, fresh is best. I love it. All right, well, everyone, are you ready? Canned, fresh, and frozen all have the same nutrient content because think about if I pick something from my garden or I harvest it from the farm, I flash freeze it, I can it, and it's right there, right? It was in its freshest state. So canned, fresh, and frozen all have the same nutrient content. It's the things like sodium we have to watch for with fruits, added sugars and corn syrup and all the other things they like to add to things that are already sweet. So those are the things we want to watch for. So if we in this room had some of those myths now that we busted, think about our guests, our patrons, who again, may have heard the same types of things, thinking as a parent, oh, I've got to have fresh, I'm not giving my kids good nutrients because I'm getting canned and maybe frozen. We can now go, you know what, you're doing great. Canned, fresh, or frozen, it's okay. They're still getting vegetables, right? They're still getting fruits. So we want to, moving forward, know that that's the case, that we don't have that fresh is best, because really, there are times where, think about here in Wisconsin, it's not always beautiful and warm, right? How far is it being trucked from a location to get here? So I love the aha moments that we had just now.
Why then would it be so important for us to have fresh produce available?
Again, that local sustainable, you know, like our local economy. How many of us went to the farmer's market over the summer?
Is that
Ours
the
is just
primary?
closing. It has a lot to do with that, especially when we know it's been around our area and it is fresh, right? I mean, the definition of fresh.
Safe and healthy.
There's aspects to that, right? Nancy, do you have anything to add to that with the fresh? I mean, when I think of fresh, I think of local food that is, you know, here. Now, again, going up to that next level, when we go to the store, do we know how long it's been sitting there? Does that make it nutritionally not as good? Not necessarily, right? We're still getting fruits and vegetables.
According to your theory, no.
So,
Well, the only other thing that I would say is, if you don't like the taste of frozen and canned, are you going to eat them?
Right.
So if you like fresh better because you like the taste of it, you're gonna eat more of it.
Sure.
Right, so to me, I'm
Good
biased,
job.
I love fresh so much. Right. I'm gonna tell you that I'm fresh and I can afford it because I don't like the canned and the frozen as well.
Yeah, totally.
Taste and nutrition are two different things.
Absolutely, and they're very important to keep in mind with that, because I grew up on canned food, and for me, this is my story, canned is just too mushy for me. I would much rather have fresh, steamed, or frozen because it's crisper. I like that. I grew up on mushy. I didn't want that for me. So again, everyone has their own story. You guys have your story. Everyone has their story. Please keep that in mind and know that all three are good choices. The goal, that we get more vegetables. That's the key. All right. Any questions about those concepts before I move us into a hands-on activity? Same thing, webinar people, anybody having any questions? All right, well, on your table behind your little table tent binder, there are a box or a couple boxes. I'm gonna move this one here. So on your table, you've got a couple boxes. Are these things that you have at your food pantry? Yes. Okay, I'm seeing lots of yeses. These are some usual common things that we either get for our pantry or that are donated, correct? Well, today we want us to think outside the box. Maybe you So these are things, I forget, I think it was you said, you know, quick, easy, bam, right? Well, what's our goal for today? Vegetables, right? Woo, good one. We want to increase our vegetable intake. So we want to start thinking about if our patrons, if we are getting something like rice-a-roni, hamburger helper, macaroni and cheese, there are things we can do to either add to this, like physically add to it, vegetables, or have it off to the side. So on your table are the larger Post-it notes. I'm going to have you actually physically put a Post-it note on the boxes that you have. And I would like you to think about the vegetables that you might add to that package to either, again, mix it in, have vegetables in it, or what would you serve off to the side? Now, if you need some motivation, inside your binder is a manila envelope with some food cards. It might help spur some ideas for what you might add. So what you're doing is on the Post-it note, writing, if I'm a hamburger helper, you've got the Post-it note. What are we going to add to the hamburger helper at your table to increase our vegetable content? If you have a rice-a-roni, same thing. Some of you have mac and cheese. Those of you on the webinar, I want you to think, if I had hamburger helper, macaroni and cheese, or rice-a-roni, what vegetables could you add? You can jot those down. We are going to be discussing these. Again, we're all about time frame, so I'm going to give us let's take 5 minutes because you have 2 boxes. That's about 2.5 minutes for each box, okay? All right, thanks for starting with your group and go. And again, those are just ideas to get you started. And you'll find there's cards and things, that's just a little idea. Okay. Get you spurring your brain.
That's a really good point.
You know, they would eat the kids, they would feed the corn, but the water's in there.
See, I wouldn't in the but I would build spinach and put it in the rice and but I
Yes, yeah, make a match.
We're just trying to just get along. Why don't you put it in something like this?
I end up shredding it.
Or you
That's an idea. Really good idea.
But it's better than nothing. If that's what they were willing to do, that's still
It's
good.
I don't like your which one we should put it in, or put it in one?
I just think we're
3 minutes morning.
And how would you put it in? Yeah, would you saute it first, would you put it in the
pleasant.
So, this is lifestyle where they used to get it done with quickly. Is there any way they could do it more quickly than slapdash, or?
That is, if you just threw it in the pan and water, you know,
Right in the boiling water.
Yeah.
And yeah, vegetables are like should be That's a great idea. I never thought about it in cheese.
Would it be enough to come?
Right?
Just again, it's just, isn't, I don't think, even if you flavored it,
That's really a great idea.
because it would be a sweet flavor.
Anywhere.
So we've got peas from one of the webinars.
There we go. Well, everyone. So if there, you chop it bigger,
As small as possible. So my kids do that, they won't get
yeah, it's harder for them to see it's small enough. So the question is whether to make that. The more you chop it, the more time.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. Although maybe that could be more of our clinics, we should get ill. Yeah. And being able to present them like this is a 6 ounce. Like this is your literal there. That they eat and everything. Like, you know, do this and do raffles and whatever. And that was good. And looking at it, they
Look at how many
Thank you so much for your time and ways to talk. So when we think about things like our hamburger helper, what is one thing that your table said could be added to hamburger helper? As soon as it's said, you can't say it. The other tables, okay? So and I'm not going to go around the room. It's going to be up to you to say something. But once it's said, we're going to say a different one. So what can I add to hamburger helper?
Peppers.
Oh, golly, peppers are here. You got to come up with another one.
Green beans.
Okay.
Carrots.
Onion.
Peas. Carrots.
Corn.
Mushrooms.
Just peas.
Okay. Broccoli.
Spinach.
Chard.
Ooh, that's fun. Yeah. So those were some things that we think of adding in, right? So again, how do we do that? If I read my directions on the back, when, where, how does that happen?
Suggestion. Power of suggestion.
Okay, so again, if we're thinking about, we know we have this in our pantries and it's available. So what can we provide as thought process into how to incorporate it? Because remember, we're assuming that everybody just knows how to do that, and that may not be their story. So we may need to provide something, Nancy's going to talk about this in a bit, to say how we do that. Okay, so that's going to be our next step. But before we do that, how about our macaroni and cheese? Mushrooms?
Broccoli.
We thought if you had some really picky eaters in the family that didn't like vegetables, you could put like butternut squash, sweet potatoes, or pumpkin right in there without them even knowing.
I love hiding vegetables. This is like my favorite thing to do. It's the best. Like, why can't I put cauliflower in when I'm cooking my potatoes and mash it all together? Right? So I love the fact that you can hide things in there, especially if it's similar in color. So I puree it up and bam, it's in there. Awesome. Thank you. We're going to talk more about that too as we go. Any other mac and cheese things, webinar people? Okay. You guys are too quiet. Like that. How about rice and roni? What were vegetables?
We got green beans.
Okay.
Tomatoes.
That's broccoli, onion, peas.
Carrots.
Kale.
You're on a kale and chard. I love it.
Peanut gallery.
Do you notice the difference between the suggestions that you had for the pasta dishes versus the rice? Were they similar or different? Some were similar, some different, and they would go with it or they wouldn't. Now again, that's going to be different for everybody, right? I may say peppers and maybe it would go better with rice, and other people might say, that would be an okay thing to put with pasta. So again, the idea, what's our goal? We want to get more vegetables. And this is one way that we can do that, to incorporate it into something or sneak it in as we are thinking about how we can do that. So our next phase then is to think about how we can do that, not only for ourselves, because of course, that's what we want is good health for us as well, but for the people that we work with and we see in our food pantry. So Nancy's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Right. So we're nudging, right? As I said, deceptively delicious, right? You're going to maybe add a few things, and if they don't like it, if we chop it as thin as we can, they may not see it. Except that takes more time, right? And so again, that whole thing of balancing time and energy and maybe the person won't eat anything out of a box, right? Then we've got to think about how we might do that differently. So we're going to focus on thinking about little steps that people can make in our food pantry so that they will begin to eat more vegetables. So as we're thinking about this for ourselves, I want us to just think about how we make changes. So all of you are really good eaters. How about exercise? How's that for you? Good at it? Not so good at it? And I told this story at the gathering, so some of you have heard this, but there was a book I read about this man was, again, trying to make changes and have positive things happen in his life. So he decided he wasn't exercising enough. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna put it on my calendar. How many of you have ever made a resolution and said, I'm gonna put it on my calendar, I'm gonna exercise at least 3 days a week? How long does that work? Maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days. Well, that's exactly what happened to him. It was like, oh, not exercising. Okay, so he's like, okay, gotta figure this out. I've got to make it as simple as I possibly can. So what he did was, and this may not work for you and your family, but he decided he was going to wear his exercise clothes to bed, including his socks. He said, I am single. Maybe that's why. So anyway, his short sleeve shirt, his running pants, and his socks on, and climbs into bed. Now, where did he put his shoes?
Right by the bed.
Right by the bed. Okay? So he still had to set the alarm, but because it was all there, he got himself to exercise more often than he was when he just tried it. So what we're going to try to do now is we're going to think about how we can make it simple for our clients. We have the produce in our pantries, correct? You have things that they could use. So how do we help them see that they could put a vegetable with this hamburger helper or the rice-a-roni or whatever it might be? So does it help to think about a specific group when you're making the nudge? So for example, if there were a lot of single males that came to your pantry, or would your nudges be different than if it were for a young family? Okay? Or maybe a person who is diabetic. We have a lot of people who are diabetic. So I would like you singly now to choose one target group that you would like to target and write that on your, well, I think we want these all on single points, right?
So you've got your little cards on the table.
Okay, so think of your target group, write it on the top. Then think about a nudge that you would be able to do that might work for that group. Now, when we're thinking about this, one thing that I want you to think about, you want it to be simple and concrete. So maybe you would add 1/4 of a cup of canned pumpkin to your pancake mix when you're making pancakes, okay? And that would be right by the pancakes, and maybe you could put the pumpkin right next to the pancake mix. Okay, can you see what I get the idea? Okay, or use mashed canned peas for baby food. Okay, the only thing is the salt content, right? So they could rinse those canned peas and mash them for baby food. Okay, so that would be the mother who has an infant. So for each of these ideas, we want you to use a separate Post-it. And we have some wonderfully talented people at Feed My People Food Bank who are going to take these ideas with an actual photo or something like that and build nudges that then you can use at your gyms. Okay, so what we're trying to do is build some pieces that they could use all over the city.
So one nudge per Post-it. If you want to think about this is really geared towards a particular audience, you can write that on there as well. Or if it's really for anyone, that would be fine too. For those again on the webinar, you may just jot them down on paper. But we're going to give you 3 minutes of individual time. So no talking. This is all about you and your thoughts. I know, Michelle, that's hard for us. But one thought per Post-it note, and I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes, and then we're going to go to the next step. Yes.
Is anyone there?
Yes, can you hear us?
Okay. I just said, hey guys.
Look at them go. This is great. Many ideas.
That's a drum. Okay, we'll have you all stop. I am so impressed. Some of you have lots and lots of ideas. So what we're gonna have you do now, because we were talking about the web today, right? Oops, I'm supposed to be standing in some places. So we are going to have you stand up and go to someone you do not know, and then sit, or let's have you stand. And stand and share the ideas that you have with the other person that you happen to scroll to. Someone you do not know.
I know.
Right here, I don't know you guys. And stand, talk to each other, and stand.
I'm not very good at ideas.
I have family.
That's all. I did that. That's great. And those two again. And something that takes. Yep. Huh. I didn't. Actually, so, I could add it to I thought it was that way. Yeah.
You know, because you get to go through and pick off the shelves, the different vegetables.
Yeah, we kind of have, so like we have like these, so like they walk down one of the and so we do bring in things like that. And then
Cereal.
Yeah. Lots of cereal. And then
I've never tried it, but my kids are pretty decent.
right?
So you can use it as a too. As people eating.
Yeah, it's got kind of a different
Dress it up a little bit. I still, I'm still trying out with working my way into eating. We came from corn. That was always, I never ate carbs, so I never did either.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's.
but even if you're,
That's actually good. The steaks on the grill, I use it.
Yeah.
Which he's a huge on the grill once, but if we're in a hurry. I didn't even know this. They do. I can try that just to see if it
Thank you so much for chatting with your partner on time. If your partner How many of us were able to get another nudge or some more ideas to what we could do to nudge? Yeah. I think that's really important. Again, that networking with people around you to be able to have those, shared combined thoughts. So I do think we're at the point where we should share some of
Yes, I think that it would be great if you would at your table choose one nudge that you just think, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. This might work really well. And then we're going to take all of your nudges and give it to Suzanne. And then we'll work at, maybe star the ones that you think are the best so that we can be, would that help, Suzanne? That, but at least, I'm sure they're all fabulous. They're all fabulous. So one of the things that, as I was speaking and listening to one of the groups, is like they're way ahead of most of us as far as one-on-one time that you get to have with those people at the pantry. And so we're going to kind of assume when we do these nudges that we don't get a lot of one-on-one time with the client, because I'm sure that's not typical that you really have a lot of time to discuss things with them. So, okay, let's start. Can you start at your table? And would you stand?
Speak this
Yeah, if one from each table, I want you to start walking up here because the people that are listening want to hear what you have to say and they love to see who's here. So one at a time from your table, if you would, come up and come up there. Yeah, with your knees. That's where the camera is. So You're a star today. Okay, what's your next?
My nut is to add tuna and peas to macaroni and cheese, and it makes a whole meal. I used to do it for my kids all the time when they were little.
Awesome.
They liked it, so.
Awesome. So it could be mounted right underneath the mac and cheese, and you could have maybe even a sample in front of it with the peas and the tuna right there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next, Sherry.
And I love that it rhymes too.
Yeah, the peas, yes.
I was telling Tammy that I've got 24 different volunteers throughout the district, and to educate them, to try and educate our guests, it's gonna be impossible. So we came up with a great idea. Have a table, it'll be an idea table, and put your mac and cheese and put your other item with it. And just 3 steps of instructions of what they can do. They can read it quick, it's not gonna bog their time down, it's gonna educate them how to do one thing, maybe each week do a different item that you wanna focus. That way you're getting across to everybody that's coming through that line, and you're not tying up your volunteers and trying to talk to each person. So whatever you come up with, bing, 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 that they know to take the macaroni and cheese, cook macaroni and cheese, add peas, or add your tuna, a complete meal at the bottom.
Right. Wonderful.
Recipe cards too. We got a comment from the.
And we're gonna be doing some of these very things that you can use those recipes.
Yes.
Awesome.
And I love the visual, because you know
Yes.
we're visual people, right? To
Yes.
have those things actually like, oh wow, that sticks in my head.
Simple and concrete.
Yes.
Awesome. Come on up. And the next one, come on.
Yeah.
Be ready. Be ready, so you're not taking too much time.
My nudge is to replace oil with applesauce. To equal amounts and.
Awesome. Thank you. Oil with applesauce. We're talking about baking now, right?
Yeah, or even pancakes you can do.
Yeah. Muffins.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Okay.
Lorna, come on in.
Well, mine is to take salad. We all have ramen noodles in our pantries. We'll use the ramen noodles without the spice packet and add some onions to it. And
So are you cooking the ramen noodles?
you can, or you can just leave them crunchy.
Okay, and you're gonna sprinkle on top.
Yep.
Okay,
And
awesome.
ramen noodles.
Okay, awesome. Great. And come on up.
Our idea was we give a dozen eggs to each client that comes there. And so my idea was to have scrambled eggs, black beans, tomatoes, you could have cheese, whatever you have available that day to go with that. And sometimes if you can have a sample, of course, would be much better, but sometimes that's not always.
Right, right. So if they could try it, otherwise they could at least put in one thing, right?
Yep.
Not all of them.
Yep.
Awesome. Good. Leslie, come on in.
I thought of the idea for frozen vegetables.
So they can see.
Frozen vegetables is putting pictures of the boxed meals on the freezer so that people can kind of correlate the two together. Sometimes when you walk by, you're like, oh, no one in my house is going to eat frozen vegetables. But if you think about mixing it with something, then you're more apt to grab it.
Absolutely. And for yourself too, do you find if you mix it in, especially if you're living by yourself, you're more likely to eat it than if you have to cook it separately? I think that adds a lot. All right, so.
Anyone else on the webinar want to hop in there? Anyone?
Nudges? Anybody a nudge that you came up with?
We hear you talking. Nope.
Are they thinking they're getting out of this?
You all can chat it in too if you don't want to unmute yourself.
Nope. Okay.
Okay, keep us cued in.
Okay, so I know you probably all need a break now. So what we're going to do is you are going to get a chance to go to the bathroom, wash your hands. I think they have aprons here. If you would like to have an apron, I know when I've worked here before there are such aprons. And we are going to have working groups to do a recipe. So when you come into the kitchen, We will just assign you to a recipe. Don't worry about whether you like it or not, except for Lorna. Lorna gets to do the Brussels sprouts because I learned that Lorna doesn't like Brussels sprouts. So we're gonna let her. I think this is the best Brussels sprout recipe I've ever found. So anyway, we're gonna have you try it and make it and smell it, look at, take it, like, and otherwise, everybody can come and we've got a simple recipe. We're all gonna get to taste these recipes, okay? So that, again, might be a night and easy night, and Jerry was talking about putting things together. Okay, so go ahead, go to the bathroom, wash your hands, and we will meet you in
I will type in the link to the announcement for the webinar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, if you're watching the webinar, we are going to move over to the live link, the live stream on the YouTube site. The link is in the comments in the webinar software. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you on YouTube.
Hey, I'm going to leave that going for a little bit so people can switch over.
I'm going to figure out how to detangle all of this.
Yeah, maybe borrow your camera. Anybody has a question about the recipe?
Yes, we are.
I just thought, even sometimes, I'm like, look at this, see what I mean? I was gonna say, they have one here as well. Yeah, I've got all kinds of recipes.
You know, maybe even the cards.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Oh, we don't even have to my sort of this one. As a salad or with whole grain
Well, part of the sauce and babies, very simple, right? I think about so professional, so quick, and we have these type of things.
Oh, sorry,
yeah. Just which one? I'm so excited because you just like spot it. And I was like, I don't get to myself.
Oh,
And one part of the recipe you eat it just like that. You can have that put it
you must be Jeff, right?
I'm Jeff.
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Sorry, I came in late.
Oh, you're good. It's quite a hike for some of us, isn't it?
Well, it was, and I had to stop at the bank on the way so that I could do an errand on after I didn't expect to be running.
Well, we'll have everything recorded for you, so anything you miss, we can.
I appreciate you guys recording it. I didn't get a chance to watch the other one.
You know what, I think that, and again, that too, if you want, and you can always add more down where you. Okay, I was wondering if that whole. Thank you. I was gonna say back here is the last measuring. Okay. Great.
believe it. I don't even need it right now.
Okay, everybody's doing so well. Wow. Oh, there we go. So if I'm done, you want to ask people? So you can even add like.
Serving staff.
But I you know what? It's only a recipe is only a dollar. Yeah. Yeah, you could, because especially if you're going to clean it, you don't want that crunch probably, right? Did you get spinach? Oh, you got it, okay. I just, get a little bit, wait on the tortilla, you just have to go all of them, right? And then you can put it on the counter. Yeah, I can try this for all the cheese and everything out, so I ordered it. You guys got one done already. That's beautiful. You know, how easy is that, right? And it's important that it's simple. Yeah. Yeah. Fancy. Good.
I'll leave it here for the moment. I'm not gonna try.
It's this cube is what it says. Sugar.
now that is an experience for them as well, based on their story, okay? So today you're gonna get a chance to try each of these. Please remember that there are, many of us, so we're gonna just take a sampling of it. Please do try everything that you are able to try, and we'll go from there. Any questions? Oh, here we go. So, come on in. Go ahead, start us off. And you will get all of these recipes, by the way, to take with you, and they'll be on the website, okay? So.